in the first episode of Breaking Bad, how Walter is talking to Jesse and he goes, "I am awake," and he's like standing in the parking lot.
Yeah.
You know that part? That's how I feel right now, Richard, because I am awake. It is 10 to midnight here in New Zealand. Richard's in Auckland. I'm in Christchurch. And I've been tired all day. But a little fun fact about me is I'm a mad night owl to the point where it's actually quite inconvenient. Like, I will get, if I go to bed, if I get up real early or something, I'll be real tired all day, but as soon as I hit like 9, 10 o'clock, I'm a live wire. I just saw Deadpool 2, but that's not what we're going to talk about.
No, it's not. And you mentioned I'm in Auckland. I'm actually in a brand new house as well.
Oh, cool. How is it?
It's pretty cool. You can obviously see some of it behind me there, AJ.
I can.
Yeah. I've got a framed picture of a light on the ceiling. It's actually a mirror. It's cool. This is the fourth house that I've lived in since we've been doing this podcast.
I'm probably not too far off that.
You'd be the same, right? Yeah, because with two of them we lived together.
Yeah. That's good. Speaking of things about this podcast that we've been doing for a while, this podcast, by the way, is film franchise Fortnights on the Cop Option Podcast. My name is AJ, and that's Richard over there. And every second week on the Cop Option Podcast, we pick a random film franchise and discuss it ad nauseum. And to slowly work back into the segue I excellently put up and then immediately abandoned, today we're actually talking about quite a, I don't know how to put it, like a significant chapter, a tentpole in this podcast's history.
Yeah, we're like rounding off a trilogy of franchises.
You're correct, because today we're actually reviewing the Mask franchise, which consists of Jim Carrey's famous 1994 comedy, Put 'Em on the Map, The Mask, and the 2005 maligned sequel that not a lot of people know exists called Son of the Mask.
Which stars Jamie Kennedy.
Jamie Kennedy.
Of the Jamie Kennedy experiment fame.
If you had told me that, if you had asked me who stars in Son of the Mask, because I'd seen it when I was like 10, if you'd said, AJ, who's the main character in Son of the Mask? I would have said Jamie O'Connell, is that his name? The guy from Kangaroo Jack?
Jerry O'Connell.
Jerry O'Connell. I was convinced it was him. Because his version of the Mask looks like Jerry O'Connell more than it does Jamie Kennedy. I was like, in my memory, in the Mandela effect in my mind, it was the dude from Kangaroo Jack this whole time. And then it started. And I was like, that's not the guy from Kangaroo Jack. But I tell you what, every movie just blurs into Kangaroo Jack eventually. So, The Mask, the first Mask film. The reason why this is a trilogy is this is actually our third Jim Carrey franchise. And it is also our third franchise, which consists of one classic and at least one incredibly disappointing follow-up, the other two being the other two Jim Carrey franchises, which included Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber.
It's also the third Jim Carrey franchise that started in 1994.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly. These first films in the other two franchises, so Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, and The Mask, all came out in 1994, and all three are often credited as being like a very like important moment in modern comedy because they pushed Jim Carrey into the limelight. Sorry, my pop filter just fell off my desk. I've got some more useless statistics because I'm starting to do that now apparently for this podcast.
Nice, that's what I do.
This is also, sorry, there must be a lot of shaking on my audio right now as I screw the freaking thing back on. This is also our third franchise, to my count, which involves an underdog turning himself into a supersonic version of himself, which he uses to impress a girl whom he eventually learns he just needs to be his true self around. The other two being the Nutty Professor and Spider-Man. Kind of. Like, both of those. Spider-Man's a different path.
He doesn't do it to impress a girl.
No, but it helps. He uses it. He uses it to impress the girl, I wrote.
Right.
And it is weird also, I thought, how a bunch of Jim Carrey's filmography deal with that specific story arc in some, or like something similar to it. Like Me, Myself and Irene or Yes Man or Bruce Almighty are all about him like either tapping into an alter ego or inheriting like some kind of magic or power. And at a stretch, Liar Liar is kind of the same lesson, but in reverse, because he learns he should be different and not himself through the thing that changes him. So yeah, there's your up top useless statistics. Is that a new segment we should start including? Up top useless statistics?
Yeah, man.
Oh yeah, new segment. You heard it here first, guys. Now we gotta do that every episode. we get like one that's just like completely foreign to everything else we've done, and there's no statistics, so we got to really dig deep and find like the obscure connections between them. Anyway, the films, if you've never seen them or don't know anything about them, or even if you do know anything about them, as I said, started with The Mask in 1994, and that is directed by Charles Russell, who's actually the director of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, which is another film series we've covered. And
Our
is also
second
the director
Charles Russell franchise as well.
Yeah. Or if you want to kind of, this is very tenuous, he directed Scorpion King, the spin-off to The Mummy.
Which was a remake of...
Yeah, the remake of the Mummy series that we, of course, covered. What do you think The Mask 1994 has on Rotten Tomatoes? What is the general consensus?
I'd guess like mid-70s.
Yep, 77% on Rotten Tomatoes. This was followed 11 years later, and not for lack of trying, and we'll get to that later. This wasn't like they made the first one and were like, oh, sweet, and then 11 years later they're like, I'll make another one. This movie was just in development hell for 11 years, essentially. And that was called Son of the Mask, 2005, directed by Lawrence Guterman, who directed Cats and Dogs, and once you know that, like the Son of the Mask makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like watched the trailer for Son of the Mask like a few days ago to get myself in the mood for it, and it says from the director of Cats and Dogs, and it has that voiceover as well. It's like Tim Avery was just a normal guy. But and I was like, oh, of course it was him, the director of Cats and Dogs.
I loved Cats and Dogs when I saw it as
another film that got like a sequel 11 years later that nobody asked for.
That and Johnny English. This is the well, I think people were asking for a sequel to The Mask though. What do you think Son of the Mask has on Rotten Tomatoes though?
6.
It's got 6% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is, my goodness, you read the critical consensus for this film, and it is like it hurts you. It breaks your heart, even if you didn't like the film. Like Jamie Kennedy spoke out about it and was like, "Yeah, it actually seriously affected my mental health." Like the reaction to it, and like he actually made a documentary about heckling that was in part inspired by how badly Son of the Mask fared with critics. So before we get any further, and because we've talked about this for a little bit already, what is the series about, and then what are the two individual movies about?
Right, well, it's basically about Loki, Odin's son, who you might recognize from Norse mythology as well as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He is the god of mischief, and he has this mask that allows the wearer to wield his powers, kind of thing. And so it's just this mask being worn by various people throughout the two movies, and getting into all kind of hijinks.
Yeah, it turns you green. It turns your face green, and you essentially become
a cartoon character.
Yeah, you essentially become a cartoon character. But I wonder if that's just the two main characters who wear it specifically, because they do like lean into the fact that what the mask does to its wearer is it actually brings out your id, your like inner self.
Right. Yeah.
And so Jim Carrey's character, whose name is Stanley Ipkiss,
it's a great name.
Yeah, it is a great name. It essentially like brings to the front like of his personality the wildness that we know of Jim Carrey, and that Stanley Ipkiss, probably has brewing underneath. Because then when a villain wears it in The Mask, he's just straight up evil, and he's a lot more subdued in terms of what he does with his powers. Like there's not as much wacky hijinks as there is like gross evilness. You know what I mean? So what's the first film about specifically?
So basically, Stanley Ipkiss is a bank manager who's he's a bit of a pushover, and eventually one day he finds this mask that he puts on and gets into all kinds of wacky hijinks and gives him all these powers, and along the way he meets a 21-year-old Cameron Diaz, and together they have to take a kangaroo that he hit with his car across from one end of Australia to the other.
No, sorry, you've done what I do often. You've actually blurred this film with Kangaroo Jack.
Ah,
that's fine. No, you're fine. Pick up where from meets Cameron Diaz, and you should be fine.
Oh, okay. And so then, they basically end up together. So, they end up together, and there's a whole. It's one of those like classic 1994 Jim Carrey movies that has like you're kind of just there for the wacky stuff, but there is like a kind of convoluted plot underneath it.
yeah. I guess we don't need to go into that. I don't plan to talk about the actual story of the film too much. Just like I'd imagine people listening to this have probably seen it, but imagine like Bugs Bunny as the character of The Mask. Like, yeah. That's essentially who he turns into, and he's sort of a mix of Bugs Bunny and the genie from Aladdin, because he can pull things out of thin air and is really like self-referential and like breaks the fourth wall and stuff. All right, so that sounds like a great movie, Richard. I'm sure The Son of the Mask in 2005 was equally as good of a story.
No, it was. So basically, in this one, we actually meet Loki. He shows up to Earth wanting to get his thing back. He's played by Alan Cumming, who's a fantastic actor. But yeah, so a guy called Tim Avery is bequeathed the mask by some kind of by his dog, who's called Otis. Like when the movie started, I was like, for some reason I just like knew the dog's name was going to be Otis, because Stanley's dog in the first one is called Milo, and then like I was
know what it's a reference to, right?
Yeah. But I was like
Milo and Otis.
I was like, for some reason I was just like, oh, the dog's name's going to be Otis, and then it was, and I was like, weird.
Well, Otis is traditionally more a dog's name than Milo. But do you think there's anyone else in the world who picked up on the fact that the two dogs across films are called Milo and Otis? I feel like no one has watched the films enough to know. Yeah, it isn't. I know it's intentional, but I'm more saying like, who else has done a deep dive on both these films and has realised this idiosyncrasy?
Yeah. Well. Yeah, so basically, Loki shows up. He wants the mask. Okay, well, the main plot of this film is that Tim wears the mask and accidentally impregnates his girlfriend, and then has a baby that has all the powers of Loki, but without having to wear the mask. And then the dog wears the mask, and then him and Loki travel to Australia once again, and it is up to them to save the animals of the outback from danger by poachers along with the help of their old friend Jackie Legs, who's the kangaroo from the original film.
No, so you're thinking of Kangaroo Jack's animated sequel.
Oh yes, G'day USA.
Yeah, g'day. That's correct. Sorry, I do that all the time as well. Dude, I was like, this isn't exactly Kangaroo Jack. I don't remember the name of the sequel, but I know it was animated. No, that's good. So yeah, that's sort of what you're looking at. These movies are very slapstick, very, I don't know, they feel the first one anyway feels like
vaudevillian.
Yeah, it feels like it was huge in the 90s, you know? It feels like comedy was really defined by Jim Carrey and those three other films in 1994.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's weird. It's a weird... 1994 must have been like a huge year for comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, just because it had those three, like...
I know, but how influential are those three? Like, growing up as two 90s kids that... like only other 90s kids will remember this, that like we like I feel like Jim Carrey was one of the first celebrities I was aware of.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
But actually, it's funny. all three of these movies I watched for the first time because of this podcast.
Yeah, true. I'd seen all of them, I think.
I was never really allowed to watch them growing up.
Yeah, he's not popular with mums.
Yeah, no.
Jim Carrey is not popular with mums. Probably is now with his whatever weird like buzz that he's on. All right, so The Mask is actually based off a comic book series of the same name.
Our second franchise with a green protagonist based on a comic book that's darker than the movie adaptation.
Is the other one Shrek?
No. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, of course. Well, we can throw Shrek in there. It's a storybook, not a comic book, but I'd say it's darker than the, like, mildly darker.
Yeah.
Probably not, to be honest.
Like, The Mask and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics are both actually quite adult.
They're quite violent.
Yeah, quite violent.
So much so that that's actually why Charles Russell was actually hired for the first film, because of his experience with like doing Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff. And apparently it was him who was so uncomfortable with just how dark the comics were that he was like, nah, let's just make it more comedic. Yeah. So in the comics, I haven't read any, but apparently according to our good friend Wikipedia, the mask.
We need to get Wikipedia on sometime, eh?
Yeah. The mask makes the wearer cruel and ultra-violent, is what it says. But in the films, the mask is toned down to make it only as dangerous as its wearer. So I think the mask actually, when Stanley wears it in the comics, he actually kills people. Yeah, well,
I think the point of it is that it like has this cartoonish absurdity, but with real world violent consequences. Yeah. So it'll be like, oh, I'm going to drop a piano on you, but like actually murder someone.
Yeah. And did you know this, Richard? You smart and smarty pants.
Mm-hmm.
When you turn into the character you turn into when you wear the mask is actually named Big Head in early comics, and the mask title actually refers to the object and not the character. What do you think about that?
That's interesting.
Yeah,
but that's no longer canon, is it? You said in early comics.
Yeah, not really, but that's still kind of interesting. Yeah. So what do you think of these films?
I wasn't like insanely crazy about the first one, but it's funny. It's one of those movies that like I had seen like every set piece, every joke in some ad or like clip, because I used to see the ad, like this used to be on TV all the time, I feel, and I would see all the trailers and ads, but I would never watch the film. And I was like, yeah, whatever. It's kind of just exactly what I expected it to be. There was nothing really too surprising about it. But then watching Son of the Mask, it felt like it had ruined my childhood, because
that's how bad of a movie it is. It ruins your childhood based on a movie you didn't even like that much in the first place.
Yeah, and had only seen a day earlier. Son of the Mask, like we say this a lot on this podcast, but that was genuinely one of the worst fucking movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know if it's quite. I think that still stands with Legally Blondes for me. I think I would happily watch Son of the Mask again over Legally Blondes.
I do want to like say though. I mean, I know I just said it was one of the worst fucking movies I've ever seen, but I do kind of have like a soft spot or like an intrigue in towards movies of like Son of the Mask that are like they have this shitty like mid 2000s CGI. Everything's shot really close up, but on a real wide lens, and the whole thing is like got this really saturated color scheme.
Yeah. It looks like a Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, but
I think it's trying to tap into what the comics are like, because the first film feels almost like Tim Burton's Batman. In terms of like the art direction for Edge City, which is where they live, or in the second one you're in Fringe City, which I wonder if is in the comics or not. I don't know. But yeah, it does. The second one, Son of the Mask, does feel like it leans more into the pastel colors of comic books more than the dark dreariness of the first one.
Yeah, but it's got that weird thing, like, you know what I mean about the wide lens thing.
Yeah,
like and I mean, showing off the fact that we both went to film school. It is like a weird aesthetic that's common in these kind of movies.
I love that you mentioned the shitty CGI, because obviously since you can't actually get a baby to go ooga and like jump around a room, they have to CGI the baby at a lot of times. And it, honest to God, it looks like the baby from Breaking Dawn. It looks exactly like the creepy CGI baby from Breaking Dawn, which is more an indictment on Breaking Dawn than Son of the Mask.
No, yes, the
Breaking
baby
Dawn came out like 10 years later.
The baby in Son of the Mask is honestly terrifying. Like,
because it's a weird looking baby anyway. Yeah, like, even when it's not being animated.
The last shot of the film is this. It's like a slow zoom into the baby, and then it does this like kind of half smile and wink at the camera, and it's honestly one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen on film. It's like they didn't like get it. Like they didn't know what kind of shot they were, because it's like they want like an evil looking baby that like does a little wink, or they want like a happy baby that winks. They just used whatever the baby was doing at the time, so you get this like weird kind of expressionless face, like disinterested, and then it winks at you, but the mouth and the other eye are still doing this disinterested expression, and it's honestly terrifying.
And we are deep into the uncanny valley with Son of the Mask.
Yeah,
like it is bananas.
Fortunately, I watched it at like fucking 144p, so like it toned it down a little bit for me.
That's shit, man. It's so bad.
Yeah.
I was watching it and I was like, I remembered really liking this when I was a little kid. Like, I remember being really intrigued by the idea of there being a sequel to The Mask, and, you know, like being like, oh, cool, that's cool. Like, you know, I remember watching The Mask when I was younger and then getting into this one, but it's just,
yeah, there's like,
so bad.
Probably one of the worst scenes I've ever seen on film, when he goes to so, you know, like when you introduce the character like Big Head, aka the Mask, you need to obviously have this, especially in the mid-2000s, you have to have a musical number to show off how cool he is. And so there's a shitty band playing at this club doing Can't Take My Eyes Off of You by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and he's just butchering the song. So the Mask jumps up on stage with his so the Mask is like bald in the first film, and then this one he's got this weird hair that like Jamie Kennedy doesn't have anything resembling. But it's
it's like, it looks like plastic. It is plastic.
Yeah, it is.
But not only is it actually plastic, but it looks like plastic. That's more what I meant. Like they haven't tried to make it look like real hair. It looks like a solid Lego head.
Yeah, but then he does this like mashup of like 4 different genres, doing and continues to sing "Can't Take My Eyes Off You." So they do like a rap, and then they do like an Elvis, and they're like a country western, and it's just like that's such a good song. And it's, oh my God, it's the worst shit I've ever seen.
Not only is it already a good song, but the implication from The Mask doing all these renditions of it is that these are better versions of that song, because everyone's all wowed by it. But it's not better versions, it's just really bizarre. Do you like how in these movies, do you like or dislike that no one really reacts to the physics-defying actions of the Mask in any real world way? Like, they are surprised to see him, but when he like spins around like Tasmanian Devil, or like pulls a Tommy gun out of like when he's making balloon animals, like no one goes, holy shit, I've just witnessed the supernatural. You know, like in real life, you know, like in real life, if you saw your son bouncing around the room, you would probably react. Like, and Jamie Kennedy reacts to it, but it's still not as intense. He doesn't commit himself.
Sabinski reacts to it as well. Yeah. She plays the neighbour from Kath and Kim. But I kind of dig it. I was going to say the special effects in the first one are actually pretty decent. Like,
because they're not trying to be anything. It is intentionally cartoony.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's the special effects team from Jurassic Park moved on to The Mask after finishing Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it was like,
they were nominated for an Academy Award, but they lost to Forrest Gump, which is a weird You don't think of Forrest Gump for its visual effects.
Yeah, well, I mean, but then you think about it, and it's like all of the scenes he's inserted into, and having Nixon talk to him and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and they give the fact that you don't think of it as being special effects heavy just shows you how good a job they did.
There you go. So you heard it here first, folks. Forrest Gump is better than The Mask. Yeah, so who do you think would win in a fight between The Mask, the genie from Aladdin, and Pennywise the clown?
Genie.
Genie? You reckon Genie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who do you reckon?
Yeah, probably Genie. Oh, no, because Genie's kind of nice, though. I think Pennywise is the most evil, but he would probably be the weakest of the three.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you've got Genie with unlimited power, or is he bound by the wishes?
Yeah, true. I don't know. What do you think? You could probably make an alignment chart of you could do the genie from Aladdin would be lawful good, and Pennywise would be chaotic evil. No, the mask would be chaotic evil. No, it'd be chaotic neutral. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this character trope of the character who's outside of time and the bounds of its own film is, we could probably find more of them. Bugs Bunny would be in there,
Yeah.
The witty talking to the camera, but also has weird magic powers.
Malcolm from Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah, he'd be neutral, true neutral.
Who would win in a fight between the Mask and Malcolm?
Okay, here's another inane question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Who is a better Loki, Alan Cumming or Tom Hiddleston?
Okay, I do want to talk about this because I actually I quite liked Alan Cumming in the film, and Alan Cumming's he's one of those actors that and I want to say this, and I want to be corrected on this. So I feel like Alan Cumming's one of those people that he has this amazing dramatic, beautiful, maybe sinister performance inside of him, and. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't claim to have watched a lot of this filmography, but I've enjoyed everything I've seen him in. But is that out there? Someone, please, if you're listening to this, recommend a really good Alan Cumming performance, because I would love to see it.
Spy Kids, he plays Floop.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just looking at this now. Oh, I would say, he's Nightcrawler in X-Men too.
Yeah, no, but even that's nah. He's got a silly accent and he's covered in makeup. I don't know. I just he's one of those people that he's got a great face for character roles and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at his filmography now, and there's definitely scope for someone being good in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Any of these movies could have a great Alan Cumming performance, but I haven't seen any of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he's one of those people that I've never heard anyone refer to him as putting out a bad performance, But then, I mean, a lot of people don't talk about him. But he does a lot of things burlesque, and he does a lot of cabaret kind of performances.
He's in GoldenEye. He's one of the bad guys in GoldenEye.
Sorry, who would you say is better? Alan Cumming or Tom Hiddleston?
I feel like I should give it to Tom Hiddleston just because he's tried harder and is in better movies as Loki.
Yeah. It would be pretty interesting to see them flip roles though.
Yeah. They're very different interpretations of the God of Mischief. Tom Hiddleston is quite a dark portrayal of mischief as opposed to Alan Cumming, who's a cartoon character.
Yeah.
So here's a fun thing about my life, Richard. I actually saw Son of the Mask before Thor, right? So when Thor came out, I already knew who Loki was from that weirdly persistent memory that stuck in my mind of Son of the Mask. So my knowledge of Loki originated with Son of the Mask. So when Loki then appeared in the Avengers and stuff, I was like, anybody see Son of the Mask? Anybody see that movie?
When I was doing research for Legally Blonde, there was a worst sequels of all time list that I was looking at, and one of them was Son of the Mask, and it said, and this was referring to, it was Legally Blonde, Red, White, and Blonde that was on this list, not Legally Blondes, but it said Son of the Mask, it's one of the worst sequels of all time, and it mentioned one of the bad things about it being that it steals from Marvel's comic book mythology. And it's like, this is straight up centuries old Norse mythology.
Okay, yeah. Doesn't say, what website was this article on? Let's name and
It must
shame
have been
it.
like Empire, I think. I want to say.
Empire?
Yeah, it was something that I was like, would not have expected it from. Or like Entertainment. It's one of those. Yeah, but I was like, what the fuck?
Also, in Son of the Mask, shout out to Cal Penn, who clearly doesn't want to do a stereotypical Indian accent, but was asked by the director because in full, like he's supposed to be like the Indian best friend, but he doesn't commit to it. And after seeing things like Master of None, where I know that now apparently a lot of like ethnic actors hate it when they have to do their accent when they're American or whatever, I do wonder if Cal Penn was like, why am I doing this shitty thing? It's so annoying.
Yeah.
So, some fun development facts, some developmental issues about Son of the Mask. A sequel to The Mask was actually floating around for years, as I mentioned before Son of the Mask was landed on, and Jim Carrey was originally attached. The Mask 2, and that's 2 as in II, was
Captain.
Actually... Yeah, II Captain. That was what it was called. The Mask 2, II Captain. The Mask 2 was actually such a sure bet that after the first film, the magazine Nintendo Power actually ran a competition where you could win a cameo in the film, like a walk-on role. And when it became apparent that the sequel wasn't happening, the winner of the competition had to be paid out. Like, imagine, like, how much money do you think they gave them?
So it was because the film, as of like now, I think, is still technically in development, kind of thing. They said, like years later, they were like, you can take, I think it was $5,000 and some merchandise, or you can wait for the role. And he was like 12 years old, so he's like, I'll take the money. And so he got like the Mask 2 crew jacket because they'd like printed the jackets. And he says he's since lost it. But yeah.
What a priceless artifact to have lost.
And but yeah, and he got sent like a bunch of Nintendo games and shit like that because he was like, I'm fucking 14 years old. I don't even want to be on a movie set. I just want money and shit like that. But
wow.
Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting. And then I believe that this competition was ran in like 95. And in 2012, when Nintendo Power went under, they finally issued an apology to him in their final issue. This one, I remember reading about this a while ago.
That's great. Thank you for doing more research than I had. So the original idea for the sequel was I don't know anything about the actual idea. I assume it had something to do with revisiting the kangaroo from the first film. But
and it was going to be animated.
Course, yeah. It, of course, never came to fruition because Carrey turned down $10 million to star in this film because of his experiences on Ace Ventura When Nature Calls, which, as we discussed in our Ace Ventura episode way back in 2016, that he didn't like reprising a character he had previously played because it offered him no challenges as an actor. And I have two thoughts on that. One is that's interesting because Ace Ventura When Nature Calls is a competent, if not superior, film to Ace Ventura Pet Detective, depending on who you ask. And also, I wonder what he'd say now after Dumb and Dumber 2, which was clearly an inferior movie to Dumb and Dumber. Like, I wonder if now he'd be more willing to return to The Mask.
Well, I feel like maybe now he's like, I've done it twice, I'm not doing The Mask.
Yeah, he's learned his lesson. Because I feel like Jim Carrey wouldn't be that good in The Mask 2 now.
Yeah.
Although maybe it would be kind of interesting because the problem I think with Dumb and Dumber was that character he was playing was very antiquated by the time he returned to it, and so it was just kind of like a drag to see him being like such a 90s archetype for a character. Whereas Stanley Ipkiss is actually quite a subdued and calm and reasonable person that maybe Jim Carrey would be able to tackle that better now as Stanley Ipkiss. It would be the Mask version that would be the harder part. But I am kind of intrigued to see what would happen should Stanley Ipkiss find the mask again, 20-something years later. However, that does kind of vaguely move us into continue the franchise, which is a segment of the show, a tried and true segment. We're not coming. This isn't new segment time where we come up with a new segment.
We've had new segment time.
Yeah. So this is a segment where we desperately scrape our minds for ideas for ways to continue the franchise we are discussing for this episode. And fun fact is, unbeknownst to me that we would get this franchise so soon, I actually tweeted a massive diatribe about my idea for The Mask 2, or The Mask to continue the franchise, about 3 months ago, and now I've copied that tweet verbatim.
Wait, do you want to talk about...
Yeah,
I was going to say, there's also talking about continuations of the franchise, because you mentioned the failed Mask 2, but there was an animated TV series as well.
Yeah, I've got that written down.
Okay,
I was going to loop back around to that. So there was, of course, as you said, Richard, an animated series spun off, much like the Ace Ventura series, and also what felt like every second major blockbuster in the 90s getting its own animated series. The series starred Stanley Ipkiss / The Mask in a series of wacky adventures in Edge City where he'd fight bad guys, much like in the comics. It ran for 54 episodes across 3 seasons and was reportedly pretty good.
And it crossed over with the Ace Ventura animated TV series in the episode The Ace Man Cometh.
And on the possibility of a third film, creator of the original comic Mike Richardson has said, "We've been talking about reviving The Mask both in film and in comics. We've had a couple of false starts."
Yes, is the comic not going anymore?
No, it stopped in like the 2000s.
No.
Early 2000s. The last, they did, because it was in series, they did a few different series. They did about 10 or so series. And the last series they did was called Joker and Mask, I think. And it was actually a crossover with the Joker, which would be pretty interesting.
Because Dark Horse comics, so.
Yeah. I assume Dark Horse is probably bought by DC, or the character was bought by DC or something at some point. That always happens. So I'll go first with my continue the franchise.
Yep.
Cool. So I'm just going to read out the tweet that I sent, but it's also going to sound like stream of consciousness at the same time.
Well, I thought for my continue the franchise, that we could kind of just have a bit of fun with your one together.
Yeah, that would be cool. I agree. So here's what I wrote. "It's a shame we never got a proper sequel to The Mask. It would have been so cool to see a sequel every 3 to 5 years where The Mask makes its way to a different person played by whatever comedic actor was big at the time who could give their own interpretation of The Mask's character. We'd be talking about who'd get cast in the next Mask sequel in the same way we'd talk about James Bond actors or Doctor Who. Plus, the powers of The Mask itself weren't necessarily wacky. That was just Jim Carrey's version. The Mask simply exemplified its wearer's traits. They could all be basically their own separate stories as well, no need to connect them beyond the mask itself winding up in their possession. Different writers and directors too, that way if one was bad, it won't doom the next one and we can keep on making new Mask movies forever. Sure, the original movies are great, but there's something really intriguing about taking a specific actor with a specific style and having The Mask push that style to its most extreme and exaggerated level. Throughout the years, we could have seen an Adam Sandler mask or a Dave Chappelle mask, Will Ferrell, Seth Rogen, Key and or Peele. We can do lady masks too with Maya Rudolph, Amy Poehler, Kristen Bell, Tina Fey, Amy Schumer. All these folks would have had unique interpretations. It's not too late, Hollywood. We can just ignore Son of the Mask in the same way we ignored Dumb and Dumberer and just do The Mask 2 or The Mask Returns or The Mask Lives and file that original sequel away as a first attempt. Now, that was what I wrote. Another thought I want to throw in here is that the original Mask feels so set up to be a franchise. Like, the music in it is like a score composed for the film that feels like it should be more iconic than it is. You know, I have similar feelings about the live-action Casper films, that both those films, their music elevates, especially Casper, because Casper's a shit movie if you watch it these days, but the music in it is gorgeous. Anyway, back to The Mask. I can picture hearing that music today in the same way we hear Star Wars or Back to the Future or Godzilla or like Pirates of the Caribbean and think, oh, that's the Mask theme tune and that's the music we associate with the Mask. What do you think of this idea? Because I think this is one of the best ideas I've had.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. But yeah, I thought we could like go through and like pitch what films would have could come out of this and like who would have starred and how they would have done. Because it's funny, because of this idea, I kind of feel like Son of the Mask would have still happened in this alternate reality, because you'd get films where they bet on someone like Jamie Kennedy being the next Jim Carrey kind of thing. Yeah. And so, but yeah, I was trying to think of like, you'd get like the first Black Mask, the first like Lady Mask, and like, you can just imagine like, so they'll do the first Lady Mask and it'll be like someone that's career didn't really take off. Like, they'll be like Natasha Leggero, or I mean, she's like reasonably successful as a comedian, but like hasn't had like a successful film career, and people will be like, oh, that one's the worst one, and people will be like, oh, it's because she's a woman, or because like, but it'll just be like it just didn't take off in the same way, and
it's like this alternate history that I don't even necessarily think the films would be all good. It just makes sense.
Like, yeah, I mean, there'll definitely be terrible ones, and there'll be a lot of people that say the first one's the only good one. But yeah, like there'll be, because I'm trying to think of like who would be the actors that would take on the role of the mask. It is people like Jamie Kennedy, I think. Like, I think 90 there'll be maybe one or two people that would do the mask that actually like made a career.
But Jamie Kennedy's mask isn't like an exaggerated version of Jamie Kennedy's comedy, is it? I don't know Jamie Kennedy's comedy.
He does like character stuff and show that. But like the one that I can like that seems perfect for the mask, I would say, is Jack Black.
Yeah, man, totally.
He's the only he's like, if you were like, you can have one Mask sequel with a different comedic actor, Jack Black seems like the obvious one to me, because he's got a different, like equally wacky, exuberant kind of style to Jim Carrey, but not in the exact same way. Yeah,
I agree. I think I was thinking of different comedic styles that would be really interesting, because the idea, the main like nugget of the idea here is that you take a comedian with a like iconic style and turn the dial up to 110, right? Because you can't even get angry at it for being like overdone then, right? Because Jim Carrey is the Mask at his most extreme, And so I was thinking someone like Jason Bateman, who's like, Jason Bateman's career as being the best straight man in a comedy,
Yeah,
so
Jason Bateman's such a treasure.
Yeah, what would an extreme straight man look like?
Right.
What would Jason Bateman's mask look like? Like, and I don't have an answer for that. I'm just putting that out there. Like, would he be super by the books, or would he still be like, he'd be more like Bugs Bunny, almost more so, like way more confident and like assured maybe. Or Norm Macdonald would be an interesting one, because he's quite, his sense of humor is very like understated and like
I guess I would. Yeah, I don't know that would necessarily work.
I don't think it would work either.
I'm thinking more. You get like Jack Black would be a perfect one. Like Andy Samberg would be a good one.
I've got written down here on the list I read out before. I've got Adam Sandler. He was like, when Adam Sandler was big. Yeah, like that,
like
that
yelling and screaming and shit.
Yeah. Dave Chappelle, I would have loved to have seen.
Yeah, but again, he's a lot more like, you don't see him get worked up.
Yeah, you do. I reckon you do. Like he's the Chappelle Show and stuff, like all those characters. He has some pretty extreme characters.
Yeah.
I've got Will Ferrell, be another one. Like I'm looking. I get that you're looking more at like whose career were they trying to kick off with this film. I'm looking at it more like who can we capitalize on.
Oh no! I mean, I'm not necessarily just saying that. I'm saying like, I was plotting out my fictional alternate reality. It would be that there would be ones that didn't take off. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like it's the whole like turning someone's dial up is like, if you're turning up a dial of like Jason Bateman, you're not really getting. When it's saying, whereas I'm thinking characters like actors that are known for high energy, but in different ways. Yeah, like Eric Andre, or like like Robin Williams could have done it. There's another one I had. But yeah, like Andy Samberg, Jack Black's like the perfect one, like Kevin Hart.
Yeah. The Rock.
Yeah.
It's not even a comedian. We always come back to The Rock when talking about this show. I don't know why. Why is it always The Rock that comes? What is it about him that makes me want to cast him in things?
It's his big arms.
No, I'm glad we're on board with this idea because I think it's and we're kind of breaking the rules of continue the franchise here because we usually say we have to come out with one now.
Well, I mean, still could. Like, I mean, we can still say, a Mask starring Kevin Hart. And then we just start again now to be like, there's a new Mask every 5 years.
Yeah, and like, I just love the episodic nature of it as well. Like, just the idea of being able to be like,
somebody stop me.
There would be like the top post on Reddit would be like,
Donald Glover should play the Mask.
Yeah, or Eric Andre officially cast in The Mask Lives, or whatever, like the title.
Yeah, there'll all be some fucking generic, like The Mask Returns, The Mask Lives, The Mask.
But I want that though, like
Revelations.
I get that it's not conducive for like knowing which film is which, but my favorite sequel titles are ones that aren't necessarily clear what they're a sequel to. Like, and that's I think why I'm attracted to like the James Bond titles is because it's hard to remember what order the James Bond movies are in, and like even something like Indiana Jones where there's no numerical. Like nothing after it's not Indiana Jones 2, The Temple of Doom. Like I really like that about it. And so I would want the Mask sequels to be like that. Like Son of the Mask is a great example, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I welcome that as a title. The Mask, The Mask in Space.
Dog of the Mask.
Dog of the Mask. The Masks. There's multiple masks now.
I Married the Mask.
Yeah, stuff like that, like real like Pulp Fiction-y type.
Yeah, Bride of the Mask.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I like it. I feel like we've exhausted what we could talk about here, but yeah, that's good. We built off each other's ideas. What about one where they get Kangaroo Jack to get
Kangaroo Jack wears a mask.
That's the crossover we're all waiting for.
Yeah, but it'll be
Kangaroo Jack meets the mask,
and the whole trailer will be like this green rapping kangaroo, and then you'll go to watch the movie and you'll find out that he actually never wears the mask in the film.
And it's a dream sequence.
Yeah.
That fucking ruined my life as an 8-year-old. Going to see Kangaroo Jack at the theatre specifically because there was a talking kangaroo in the trailer, only to find out that whole scene was just a dream sequence. Like, why would you just don't put it in the trailer? Like it's obvious. Like you're intentionally underselling your movie by doing it that way.
Yeah.
He was like hip hop. Hip hop hat.
Yeah.
Hip to the hippie to the hippie don't stop. Yeah. That was the song that Kangaroo Jack sung in the trailers, but he didn't do it in real life, and that I've never got over that.
Yeah. It's probably the worst movie of all time.
Yeah. Christopher Walken's in that movie.
Yeah, I remember there's a bit where they're talking about money, but it sounds like they're talking about poop.
Yeah. I remember there's a bit where he hallucinates. He keeps hallucinating, and then he sees the girl character walk up, and he goes up and grabs her boobs because he thinks she's a hallucination. And he looks around to Anthony Anderson, and he goes, "They feel so real." And because of that scene, I was too scared to tell my parents to watch it. Because I remember I went to the movies alone to see it, and when I think it came out on DVD, I think they were talking about getting it out on DVD, and I was
you're
like, no, you can never know about the boob scene in it.
Yeah, they wash your eyes out with soap.
Yeah,
did your parents ever do that?
No, not my eyes.
No, my eyes,
my eyes. I just burped. I'm sorry. Okay, well, do you have anything else that you wanted to say about The Mask?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, good.
Oh. Good, because I was going to cut it out anyway.
Okay, well, that's it then. Goodbye.
That's not it.
I've got the franchise list up here.
All right, let's get a random.
So before we do this, this is a segment called Franchise Roulette, where we randomly select our next franchise to cover over the next fortnight. But if you enjoy this podcast, please remember to subscribe on iTunes or YouTube or wherever you're listening, and also on SoundCloud. And you can like us on Facebook, Cult Popture. Just look up Cult Popture everywhere. What was that number?
97.
97. Franchise 97.
97.
Franchise 97.
I thought she said Yanny.
She didn't. She said 97.
Ah.
All right, I'm looking at it right now.
Did you get that reference, OJ?
No, I saw a Yammy reference on my newsfeed and I didn't understand it. And to the point where I didn't know what scale you were talking about, that I didn't know if you genuinely thought it said Yammy and it was a coincidence, or there's something big happening in the world about Yammy.
Okay,
what's happening about
it's
Yammy?
Yanny, but there's
Yanny.
this will be old by the time this comes out in 2 days. But there's remember the dress?
Yeah.
So there is the new version of that is a piece of audio that someone tweeted, and there's a big argument about what it says. I'll play it for you now, and we can get the whole podcast on this, even though it's like one of those things I fucking hate talking about.
Laurel.
So what's the other thing people think it's saying?
What do you hear?
Well, I hear Yanny because that's what I've been told it says.
It says Laurel.
Oh my god!
Laurel.
I can't. How did I hear Yanny before?
Yeah, apparently it's to do with the pitch and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, play it again.
Oh fuck! I just lost it.
That's crap. I've actually got chills. I'm a bit scared.
All right.
Laurel.
Yeah, I can hear both.
Really? When I first heard it, I was like, I hit play and then I grabbed my headphones, and as I put them on, I heard Yanny, but then when they were on, I heard Laurel, and I've heard Laurel ever since. I hear
it's either Yanny or Laurel.
Yeah, that's the thing. So it's like a real high pitched one, and then yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah. Anyway,
I like this meme. Anyway,
I hear white and gold.
Franchise 97 is I think it's still 4 films. The Scream franchise.
Yeah, it's 4.
Sweet. That's it, guys. That's the next one. We're doing Scream next.
Oh, that's interesting. That's why our second Jamie Kennedy franchise in a row.
Oh, what a coincidence. How fascinating. like these statistics that only pertain to the podcast and not to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I find that so interesting. I love that.
On the IMDb trivia for Scream, it's not going to say this was the second franchise covered by Film Franchise Fortnights.
That's interesting. Scream's one of those movies that I kind of always wanted to see, but because I'm not a horror person, I'm intrigued by the idea of them, but I'm also very
Wes
scared.
Craven did Scream, didn't he?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. Nightmare on Elm Street. Our second Wes Craven franchise.
And also our second franchise based on Scream.
Yeah. That is or is based on Scream. Yeah, that's kind of cute that we're doing Scream after doing Scary Movie a year and a half ago.
Should we get David to guest star?
I feel like he's very busy at the moment.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that.
I mean, he was too busy to watch all the films last time. I can't imagine what he's like now.
Yeah.
Now that he's thin. That's fine. He's not going to listen to this.
The traitor. He got thin while we just got fatter.
Hey, I've lost weight.
Bastard. Have you?
Yeah, I have. I've lost 10 kgs.
Oh, nice. I live with my parents now, and they seem to be concerned for my physical health. But then they took me to Wendy's tonight, so I didn't even ask. They were like, "We're going to Wendy's. That's dinner."
The fact that you're I live with my parents and you still got Wendy's for dinner.
Yeah. It's like nothing's changed. Bullshit. All that happened is now I have more food.
Yeah, and they pay for it.
Yeah.
Do they pay for your Wendy's?
Specifically because they pay for my dinners. Which I know isn't better, but it's more not like I expected them to pay for it. It's, this is dinner tonight, we're buying dinner, so we'll buy your Wendy's.
Right.
Does that make it better? I don't know. Who cares?
I don't know.
Alright, goodbye,
Everyone
everybody.
write in and tell us if that makes it better or not.
Thank you for listening.
Alright.
Tune in next fortnight for the Scream franchise.
And bye.
Bye.